Hi, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well today. I'm Dr. Asha. Today, I want to talk about hidden stress in our bodies. I think that this is something that we're dealing with unknowingly, maybe subconsciously, consciously, but this is the stress that really no one's talking about. And I wanted to share this with you because this makes a big difference in our well-being and in our health. A few weeks ago, I was in a restaurant and I went to go just have a cup of coffee. I had a little bit of a break, and I don't drink coffee very often, but when I get a chance to, like to pop into a favorite location and go in there. And one of the things I noticed, I went in, I ordered everything, and it was very subtle at first, but then I started looking around, looking at, other people that were there. And people were sitting, some of them were sitting with their laptops, some of them were sitting with their phones, some of them were sitting together with other people and still, had their phones on the table. Some of them were sitting by themselves, just scrolling frantically. And I started noticing that everybody looked tense, not like, in panic, but they looked tense. Their shoulders were a little bit tense. They were a little bit more alert. They were looking around everywhere. No one was arguing or anything. There wasn't any kind of commotion, but there was just like this tension, this tightness that you could feel in the room. And even when people would get a notification, they were in the middle of a conversation, they would get a notification, they were continuously checking their phones. And I was just kind of in observation mode because I was just there to enjoy my cup of coffee and just kind of relax and not look at anything. And I just get into that observer mode. I love to people watch. And I remember thinking, something I've been noticing a lot more and more lately is that people are carrying a certain kind of tension that's kind of subtle, but it's like they're carrying it, but they're not even realizing it. And definitely as a practitioner, I see this very often where people are disconnected with their bodies and they're not even realizing that there's a lot of tension in their body because they've been carrying it for so long, or they've just disconnected with the feeling of it and they've gotten used to it. So they don't really know the difference of what it feels like to be relaxed or tense. But this kind of tension, it's a quieter one that builds slowly in the body. And over time, if we don't address it, it starts living in the body and it starts screaming at us. So let's talk about a little bit about this hidden stress that, people are carrying right now and where it comes from, where it could come from, and how we can start to release it. This kind of stress doesn't look like the stress that we're used to. Most of us think that stress is something loud. It's like a major deadline, a major life change, a difficult conversation, an argument, whatever it is. But this kind of stress that I'm talking about, it's very subtle. It's something that we can be experiencing for quite some time. It builds up, it accumulates over time. And because it builds slowly, a lot of people often don't even notice it until the body begins to send signals. And the signals can be pain, can be fatigue, even after sleeping, irritability, difficulty concentrating, tension anywhere in the body, in the neck or in the jaw or anywhere really, lower back pain. Or the strange experience when you sit down to relax and your mind keeps racing, or you keep on sitting on the edge of your couch or the edge of your seat. I've heard that very often from people where they've noticed that they just can't relax. I had this moment myself not that long ago. I had finished everything that I thought that I could that day, and there were still some things that I think were a little bit pending. Nothing really urgent was really waiting, but I sat down and I wanted to just relax. I gave myself permission to relax, and I just couldn't. My mind started going and racing just like everybody else's. It started racing to what needed to be done tomorrow, what needed to be done next week, next month. And I was thinking about, I was replaying conversations that I had that very day. I had a very busy day that day. And I realized that, my body was used to being on at that point. I had to do a lot more effort at that point to get it to turn off. And that happens for everybody. Even when nothing's happening, our body responds to what's going on in our nervous system and in our mind. And I started noticing how common this experience can become if you're not aware of it. The world that our nervous system is living in right now, we got to understand the hidden stress that when we look at our environment, from the beginning of human history, stress has had always a clear beginning and a clear end. A threat appeared, your body reacted. When the situation was over, your body settled down. Back in the caveman, cavewoman days, There was a threat. Maybe there was an animal that was attacking. The man or woman attacked back. Situation was done. They were back to safety. The nervous system said, okay, we're safe now. Let's get back into calmness. And now, in today's world, our information never stops. Our environment is continuously, our phones are bringing the entire world into our pockets, which is a beautiful thing, a lovely thing. At the same time, it definitely, with all the updates, all the pings, the emails, the social media, the opinions, the arguments, the WhatsApps, whatever it may be, the warnings, predictions, even the weather, messages that we get about the weather, even when nothing directly affects us in our personal lives, our brains are constantly absorbing this emotional signals, these emotional impulses from the world around us. And our nervous system is responding to those signals, but not always consciously. And this is why sometimes you don't even realize it, but physically it's responding to all of those things. And think about how often our attention gets interrupted in a single day. We're busy doing something, like right now I'm sitting here talking to you, and if I had my phone on, it would probably be pinging, distracting me kind of in the background. You start one task, notification appears, you check a message, you remember something you forgot to do, you switch to another task, you check the news, it goes on, and then you respond to another message or an email. And that constant shifting of attention, it's like a ping pong match, actually, may seem small. And it may seem like, hey, you know what? I'm really good at multitasking. But it creates something powerful. It creates that your nervous system never fully feels settled. And when the nervous system stays in a heightened state for too long, the body begins to carry that tension automatically, whether it's in your shoulders, in your lower back, wherever it may be. And then you wonder, okay, wait a second. I had a treatment. I got a chiropractic treatment. I got a massage. I went for a walk, and it's still there. What is going on? And, I hear different versions of this experience all the time. A professional who tells me, I'm doing well in my career, but I feel exhausted all the time. Or a parent that says, I love my family, but I'm always juggling something. Or a student, I had a student the other day that says, I feel pressure to succeed, but I'm not even sure what success means to me yet, or what it's supposed to look like. These are things that people are reflecting upon, and none of these people are failing. None of them are doing anything wrong at all. They're just simply living in a time where the pace of life often moves faster than our ability to process it and completely process it to complete it. And when we don't have enough space or time to process our experiences, our bodies begin to hold them. This is why it's so important. I mean, sometimes tension, sometimes as fatigue, sometimes as this quiet sense of unease that you just don't know what it is, but something that you can't explain. And then you get to the moment that the body speaks up. One of the most fascinating things about the human body is that it communicates long before a problem becomes serious. I mean, the body whispers before it shouts at us, long before. So it might start off with something small: difficulty falling asleep, trouble concentrating, tightness in the shoulders and the neck, feeling unusually irritable, just really on edge, or noticing that even simple tasks feel heavier, that take a lot more out of you than they used to. And these signals are not inconveniences, but they're just messages for us to say, hey, the body's asking for attention, for rest, for recalibration, for you to drink water, for you to eat healthier, whatever it is. But many of us have learned to override these signals or to suppress them. We tell ourselves to push through, keep going, don't worry about it. And I know sometimes we have to do it. We just keep going and to deal with it later. But sometimes that later never really comes. And until the body forces the issue to say, okay, now that's enough. We need to have some attention. Learning to listen earlier is going to be one of the best ways to deal with this. What if we started to learn to listen earlier? I hear people, a lot of times come to me and say, I don't have time to listen. I don't have time for that. And I always say, if you don't make time for your health now, you're going to be forced to make time for your illness later. And that's true. I mean, what if instead of waiting till we burnt out or for the overwhelm, we began responding to the small signals that our bodies are speaking to us, sending us every single day. That response doesn't have to be complicated either. Pausing during the day to notice how you feel. And I'm talking, when I'm saying pausing, I'm talking 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds max. Taking a few slow, deep breaths in between seeing clients or seeing patients, realizing that your shoulders have crept upward again because of the tension, just stepping away from the constant information for a while, whether it's 5 or 10 minutes, we all have the time. Allowing your attention to rest, to not take in any information, spending time in environments where your nervous system can unravel itself, can settle, going outside for a walk, nature, a quiet conversation, a morning without screens, making it a point to do that at least once a week, if not every day, having a certain time limit that you're not going to look at your screens. These small adjustments can allow your body to release tension before it accumulates, can make a world of difference. They remind our nervous system that it does not need to stay in that state of alert all the time. If you have felt unusually tired lately, if your mind's been racing, even when you try to rest, there's a good chance that you're experiencing what I'm explaining to you, that hidden stress that many people are carrying right now. And recognizing this is not a weakness. It's an awareness. It's part of self-reflection. It's part of self-care. Because the moment that we begin to notice what our bodies are experiencing, we gain the ability to respond with care instead of simply pushing forward and pushing ourselves too much over our limits. If this conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you noticed moments where your body was carrying stress you hadn't realized before? I'd love to hear. Share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes, that small shift of awareness in the beginning is really the most important step that you will take in making a real change in your life.